If you're not getting the results that you should be getting, and you've put in all the effort that you can put towards creating those outcomes, I would suggest that you don't have a hustle problem, but rather you have an identity problem. Hi, my name is Kamoya Benjamin, and if we're meeting for the first time, I help individuals and teams create more. I'm a peak performance coach, and more means more impact, more clarity, more income, more influence, more decisiveness. Whatever more represents for you, I'm your coach to help you get more of that. And how I do that is through identity, understanding what drives human performance, and then doing the work in between our ears to unlock what's possible for us. The money you want, the kind of relationships you desire are not eluding you because you're not worthy of them, but that rather the identity that you have is incompatible with the results that you seek to create. I remember John Maxwell teaching me this early on in my journey as a coach when he said, Benjamin, you don't produce what you want, you reproduce who you are. And who you are is the simplest definition of identity. Now, it really shocked me, having worked with more than 300 executives, CEOs, and founders of organizations. What I found is that while they came onto coaching calls and presented challenges as saying, and I'm trying to create this result, but then I'm not able to realize it. I don't know what's holding me back. I'm doing everything that I want. I began to notice a pattern, and the pattern was this. Let me show you that there was something beyond their reasoning, beyond their level of awareness at that point, that determined all the choices that they made. While they thought that they were consciously making choices, there's this part within them that was responsible for creating the results in your life. And I'm talking about everything from the career that they chose, the money that they made, who they married. I'm serious. Yeah, you don't get to choose your spouse. This part within you chose your spouse. Even who they vote for in the political arena, where they live, the address of their home, even to things like whether or not they're going to have a divorce, and the goals that they set and achieve, and also a determining factor for whether they would be happy or satisfied. And these are just but a few of the things that I began to notice, and it's that, hey, we don't get to create what we want. We reproduce who we are automatically. And therefore, if you're not getting the results that you know innately, you should be getting this result, but it's been eluding you, you don't have a hustle problem, you have an identity problem. And in my work in seeking to understand human capacity potential, I uncovered that there are 6 sources of identity. And these 6 sources of identity form what you would call your self-concept. And the self is what you deploy into situations and circumstances to create the results that matter most. I've always said that leadership happens in moment, and leadership really is not being in front of the line, guiding or telling people what they need to do. There's a part for that within teams and organizations, but the most powerful form of leadership is self-leadership. And the self-leadership here is the self that I deploy into circumstance. Self is governed by identity. And there are 6 sources of identity. I want to walk you through them very quickly. Follow me here in the next few minutes. We'll populate this and we'll talk about the 6 sources of identity. Number 1 is what we call spirit identity. Spirit identity. By spirit identity, what I mean is that if you have a basic understanding of who we are as human beings, we are spirit. Our existence as humans is we are spirit. If you have ever told a friend who lost a loved one that I hope they rest in peace, this is what you believe. You believe in the afterlife. You believe that I am a spirit and my existence goes beyond the physical world. Now, because you are a spirit, all right, you have a soul and you live and move in a physical body. Okay, so the spirit identity speaks about your existence as a as a creation of God. You know, as a creation of God, you are a spirit. And this identity is, in most cases, your divine connection identity. Okay. Now, this governs to a large extent how you see yourself and who you consider yourself to be, and most importantly, whose you are. Not just who, but also whose you are. All right. That's the first source of identity, spirit identity. Now, with this comes another very important source of identity, which is what I call seed identity. All right. Seed identity is as a result of conception in your mother's womb. You have been born as a man, you've been born as a woman, and you have, a certain aspect of your identity, okay, that is just as a result of the seed. And it also determines your DNA. It determines whether you're tall or short. It determines whether you are, light-skinned or dark-skinned. It determines everything about your DNA. That is seed identity. Now, all these identities are important to factor in because they govern, collectively they govern how you show up in different scenarios. Seed identity is followed by what we've just talked about, which is soul identity. Now, in terms of soul identity gives you what you have in your soul: the mind, the will, and the emotions. Okay, and the emotions. And so this is kind of the reservoir, as I see it, of what you would see as your strengths. The strengths here being the three core areas of strengths: heart strengths, head strengths, and hand strengths. Hand strengths are about you creating results. Head strengths are about you having reason, smartness of the mind, and heart strengths are about you developing relationships with others. Three core areas of strengths. This is where you find your giftedness. This is where you find your abilities to create and do things that are uniquely gifted to you: hand, head, and heart. I'm just going to go through this very quickly so that you understand what we're talking about. Your soul identity is also where you find your emotional core also exists, okay? Emotional core here for you is, and you find people begin to embrace this as an identity. I am, okay, is a word that we use when identity speaks. It uses the word I am. I am angry. I am sad. I am happy. I am, whatever word comes after I am, we embody that part. And it's the identity speaking because that is a soul identity. Okay. We could get into details on this, but let me just give you all this at a high level. Number 4, we have what we call a social identity. Okay. We have a social identity. Okay. A social identity has got to do with the fact that you have been born within a family, okay? We've been born within a family, and those groupings by a tribe, okay, gives you that social identity. There is also your, relationships with others. You're a brother. You are a son. You are a sister. You are a father. You are a mother. You are a daughter, all right? Those are social identities, okay? Social identities. And then when you come here, I have what you call your socialized identity. Socialized identity. And in other words, this is the identity that you take on yourself as you engage in the world. It's who people say I am. It's who people know me to be. Now, it's important for you to understand these 5 sources of identity because they collectively govern your self-concept. They collectively govern your self-concept, and as a result, they influence what you do. Back there, I just talked about the choices that you make. All the choices, all the decisions that you make are governed by your identity. Rarely do you veer off from your identity, which manifests itself as your self-concept. Now, in terms of understanding these five sources of identity, here's the thing I want you to note. One of these identities influences you the most. What I found in my work with people is when I get onto a call and I'm meeting a client for the very first time, I want to know them at an in-depth level. And so there are 3 questions that I ask them. And the first question I ask them is, number 1, who are you? Who are you? And this is an identity question. An identity question. And when I ask them an identity question, a client will most likely pick from one of these 6 areas and tell me who they are. I did an experiment one time and I asked a couple of people that are on my WhatsApp group. I just texted them, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? I was like 10 or 15 people, and I just wanted to find people. And I texted some of the most aware people, like in my WhatsApp contacts, and I say, let me just do this experiment and see what happens. The response that I got from most of these people was not that, hey, I am gifted as this, or I have that, or I am the other. They asked me, what do you mean? What do you mean, Benjamin? Don't you know me? And I said, yeah, I know. I know it's you, Susan. I know it's you, Andrew. I know it's you, Mary. I know, Elijah, it's you. I'm asking you, who are you? I know, yeah, we share contacts on WhatsApp. Who are you? And what I found is that they struggled to answer that question. They were not able to pick from a spirit identity, or a seed identity, or a soul identity, or a social identity, or a socialized identity, which sometimes borrows from one of these different sources of identity. It is not uncommon that when I've asked people, who are you? The first thing they say, I am a mother, I am a daughter. By now you know where they are tapping their identity from. I am a mother, I am a daughter, I'm a marketer. You know where they're getting that from. I am a business person. Those are things you do. Those are things you do. They are not who you are. And so it's important for you to notice that the results that you create in life are governed by the identity that drives you the most. If you have a very strong spirit identity, and so you might find somebody who has developed their relationship with God and they know who they are in God, perhaps they're a Christian as I am, I take a lot of time to develop my identity in Christ. My identity in Christ would fall here under my spirit identity, because I want to develop that part of myself and I want to articulate more about who I am in Christ, because that identity then influences this identity, it influences this identity, it influences this identity and that identity. It is the identity through which I kind of live out my existence. Now, it's important for you to know which identity is most developed in your life. It's important for you to understand, where have I put in a lot of investment? Where do I know myself the most? And so again, we're talking about the fact that all these identities put together, they crystallize into what we are calling the self concept. A concept about yourself. And this self-concept is responsible for all the choices that you make. It governs your confidence. It governs how much money you make. It governs the goals you set. We talked about that earlier in the day. And so the self-concept, this self, is the one that you want to gain awareness and mastery of. Because then if you do not gain awareness of this part within you, it will run your life. It will dictate your life. And you will call it fate. What did Carl Jung say? Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist, says, until we make the unconscious conscious, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. I believe that he meant being able to understand our drivers, our concept of self. And the concept of self is the identity. You will find, as I teach deeply on this idea, in the soul identity is where you will actually begin to understand the beliefs and the assumptions. Let me just bring that up for you on the screen. The beliefs and assumptions that drive how you look at life. In the soul identity is where you're going to have your values developed. And so you might find that the narratives that I'm operating from are either serving me or not serving me. When you find somebody says, I'm not good at something, they are referring to their soul identity, specifically looking at those strengths that they have and saying what they are and what they can. I am not good enough. I am is the word that identity takes when it wants to express itself. I am not good enough. I am not capable. I am not enough. I am afraid. Can you see how this soul identity then influences what you can do and what you can't do? So if you don't have what it is that you claim you want to have in your life, it's not that it's lacking out there, because tell you what, there is somebody who is already living the definition of the dreams and the goals that you've set for yourself. They're not any more special than you are. What they have been able to do is they've been able to identify the identity that would align with what it is that they seek to create, and automatically, by law, it will come to you. Automatically, by law, it will come to you. And so the work that I do with leaders is we identify. We have an assessment that we guide leaders through, and the assessment helps them understand the identity structure that they are operating from, that they are launching their lives from. So we have an assessment that can help you understand your soul identity as far as creating results is concerned. Click the link in the description and you will get an assessment that can help you evaluate that part of your life. But if you seek to understand how you are wired as far as these 5 other sources of identity are concerned, I want you to type identity in the comments and I will begin a conversation with you on how you can develop these identities to serve you to create the results that matter the most in your life.